questions in the chat, and we will monitor them, and then we will put them up during the Q&A session. I will now introduce our first speaker, Ana Guerrero. So Ana holds a PhD in e-learning and technology from the Open University of Catalonia, where she's now a lecturer in the Computer Science, Multimedia and Telecommunication Studies department, and also a member of the digital literacy area. She focuses her research on the design of technology-enhanced systems for online teaching and learning processes, and especially on issues of e-assessment and feedback. And Anna was the coordinator of the Tesla project, and her role was the overall management of the project and also the definition of e-assessment framework for educational institutions. So now I will give you the floor for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Anais. And hello to everyone and welcome to this seminar. I hope that you enjoy a little bit about our presentations. I'm going to start my presentation. Let me check how I can. Okay. I'm just at the beginning going to show you what is about my speech. I'm going to speak our background when working in this project, which was our challenge, our goals, and also which is the point of view of the teachers and students involved in this kind of system. Some figures, just a summary, and finally some recommendations that we learn after using a system like Tesla. So first of all, I want to show you, as Anais said, I'm coming from the Open University of Barcelona, which is an fully online university since 1994. All our teaching and learning process is conducted through our virtual learning environment, but our final examinations till some years ago were performed in a face-to-face manner. So we started to think how to solve this kind of procedure to say, okay, we are really fully online. So it means that we need to see how to perform these final examinations in an online manner. So around 2003, we started to work in an internal project called eExam. So we were developing some tools in order to see how to evaluate learners from home. And later, we got another project called Valid, which means validation of the identity, this project started in 2012. And from this project, there were around 3,000 learners per semester that were taking their final examinations around the world. So this project was focusing on learners who were living abroad of Catalonia, so they were not able to come to Barcelona to take the final examinations. And later, what we saw was that there were a lot of learners of the EOC interested to be fully assessed online and also to take the final examinations online. So we started to think in the Tesla project, which was an Horizon 2020 project that finished last year on 2019. And you will see right now what is Tesla project and how it works. I will do just a brief summary because it's a really big project. And right now it's quite fashion project. So I will try to explain it later. And well, in Tesla project, there were 7 universities testing the Tesla system and around 25,000 learners were testing the Tesla system. So after that, and right now we are working in a new version of this system that will be open sourced, and it will be ready by the end of 2020. I mean, by the end of this year, and then other institutions will be able to use it from January of next year. So taking into account this, let me switch my presentation. Yeah, I would like to start just showing you which is the traditional situation when we are performing final examination with our learners. You can see the cream scene and just one guy, maybe it's George, it's trying to copy. And in the other side, you will see which is the teacher's role. The teacher's role is that we try to isolate our learners, and then we try to avoid that they will be taking a look, let's say, to the other colleagues that they are performing the examinations. So what happens usually is that then our students have an unlimited eliminations. So it means that they have other solutions that we don't have as a teachers. So in the top-down image, you can see how teachers are going to solve this. So I'm going to put in the best corner in the classroom to see that all my learners are doing what it's supposed to do and not cheat. So what we saw in this process, these previous slides were referring to a face-to-face environment, but in fact, when moving to online environments, what we saw is that the big question, it's not about cheating. The big question is, of course, it's cheating, but in fact, it's more related with, it's about trust. So we thought that maybe for doing a fully online assessment, we need to solve two main topics related with not only with cheating. These two topics were the authentication and the authorship. So what does it mean? It means mainly that the student that we have in the screen, it's the same that she claims to be. And on the other side, it's the authorship of the learning activities. So it means that the learning activities that they are doing are being submitted and previously done by themselves and not for a colleague or maybe for other ones. So as a teacher or as a higher education institutions, what we need to solve for conducting a real assessment system, it's not only cheating. Of course, cheating, it's really important, and we have several tools to control this kind of behavior. But in this case, it's to be sure that we are solving the authentication and also the authorship issues that we are currently having. Let me say that this is not a typical issue on online education. I mean, it's the same in face-to-face higher institutions. Of course, authentication is more easier than authorship, but in fact, it's a problem which it's not solved. So we cannot think that we are going to solve digitally what it's not solved in a face-to-face manner. But anyway, it's a first step to address this kind of issue that we have. So who were behind Tesla? Behind Tesla, you can see here, we were 18 partners. From that partners were 8 universities, 3 quality agencies, 4 research centers, and 3 companies. And we had also around 50 external experts. Later, my colleague Esther will explain, of course, the quality assurance work performed in the project. And this work, it's coming from a lot of quality experts behind the project, analyzing what we do. So the conclusions and, let's say, the guidelines that the framework they did, it was really valuable, not just for the project, I mean, for other higher education institutions about how to perform really good e-assessment from e-assessment process from the quality point of view. So going back again to the project, that the main goal of the project was to develop a system for ensuring authentication and authorship in online, but also in blended environments. This is the case, what is happening right now. Traditional universities are quickly moving to blended environments because they need to assess their learners due to the current situation that we have right now with the virus. So Tesla was thought at the beginning for blended universities and higher education institutions, but also for distance or online universities. And it was not only covering, let's say, the educational part and the technological one, about how to use it and which are the pedagogical guidelines behind this kind of system. And it was taking care also about the quality, ethical, and legal aspects, which are right now really important. As I previously said, Esther will explain about quality issues. The ethical one were also included in the project, and the legal ones, you will see why. I'm just commenting I'm taking some time to speak about the legal one because as we are working with personal data, it's really, really important to be sure that we are fulfilling the GDPR for not having troubles with the personal data of our learners. So beside this, our project was also analyzing the learning activities that our teachers are performing in the higher institutions. And our main goal was to also introduce the tools that you will see right now, the instruments you will see connected to the learning activities, and later to test how these kind of tools were working, plugged to the learning activities, and how the teachers were using it, and also how the learners are using it, and which are their perceptions when using this kind of system. So you should imagine Tesla like a hub. I mean, sometimes it's quite easy to explain Tesla in just 5 minutes, but I will try to do my best. So you should imagine Tesla like a hub that you can connect several instruments. And then after connecting these kind of instruments, you as a teacher or as instructor can select which are the most suitable instruments that your learners can use for performing your learning activities. Let me say one really important thing is that Tesla was not thought for final examinations. Even it was used for final examinations, the main goal of Tesla was to be used in a continuous assessment model. Why? Well, because we thought that if you are able to be sure that your student is who claim to be, and the activities is that he or she are delivering through our learning environments, we are sure that they are performing from them across the whole continuous assessment. Why do we need a final examination? Maybe it's not needed because we are tracking the learner from the beginning till the end. So this is the idea and the rationale behind Tesla, not to be used just for a final examination, 1 hour final examination or 45 minutes, because it has no sense if we are previously tracking our learner from the beginning till the end of the system. So Tesla was thought to be used in a continuous assessment model. Even it can be used in another assessment models, but our idea was to be used in this kind of assessment model. So what is contained in Tesla? Tesla have the instruments you can see here. Some of them are related with the authorship. Other ones are related, they are designed for authentication purposes, and another one, they are used for confidence. So for authorship, for being sure who is, if the activity that I'm delivering was done by myself, we were using a plagiarism tool and a forensic analysis tool. The plagiarism tool is like Urkun or Turnitin. It's a tool quite similar like these ones. So it was using for check all the learning activities delivered by the students. One of the nice idea is that we can compare between the activities delivered in the same classroom, in another classrooms, or maybe in the whole university. This can be done, and even checking it with net. And the other tool was forensic analysis. What forensic analysis do, it's let's say that it's like a stilometry analysis. This tool, what it's doing, it's analyzing how we usually write our documents or essays when we are working in a learning activities. So I usually start more or less, let's say, always with the same sentences at the beginning, with the same sentences at the end. So I use the same connectors and things like that. So forensic analysis tool, what it's doing is analyzing how my style, it's been, let's say, the same across the whole course when I'm delivering the learning activities. On the other side, we have other tools related with authentication, which are facial recognition. So it means that I'm showing my hand like right now in this webinar, and the system is capturing my image, and later it is running, like an algorithm is running and later analyzing if I'm me or not, let's say. We have also a voice recognition tool, it was really, really useful in the case of the courses related with languages, where the students have to record and speaking. Sometimes the record of speaking, it's not done by the student, and maybe it's a colleague who better speak English than him. So it was really useful. And the other tool that we have is Keystroke Dynamics, which mainly means to capture when you are typing with your keyboard. So it doesn't matter if you are typing with a PC or a laptop or an iPad. I mean, the system is just tracking which is your rhythm when tracking, and we are the common, let's say, mistakes that you are doing when writing. Okay. Later we have for confidence 2 additional tools which are really easy, and both of them are really running automatically, which is the digital signature and the timestamp. Timestamp is just the day and the hour where we are submitting the learning activity. So then our learners cannot say, "Oh, I was delivering this at 10 o'clock. The deadline was at 12, and I received it as a teacher at 1." So it's so you have in the document the timestamp that can say, no, in fact, this activity was delivered at 10 o'clock, even you as a teacher didn't receive it till 1. And we have also the digital signature, as you know, that is the digital certification that we usually have. So how it works? Well, first of explaining you how it works, I would like to comment some aspects. First of all, the main question is that you need to be sure if you need this kind of system or not. Okay. So in case though you would like to use this kind of system, you should think that it's something running behind the educational process. So it's not the first, let's say, the first phase of any assessment process. This is something that it's there, it's in background, and it's running. It's not in front of the screen of the learner, of the student. So when thinking about using this kind of system, you should be aware that, in fact, the role who best know the courses that they are doing are the teachers. So the teachers are who best know the content to teach, the methodology that they are using in their courses, which is the best assessment model, and as I said here in this slide, above all, how learning activities are designed in each course. So teachers are one of the main actors in this teaching and learning process. So the first step is that teachers should analyze the learning activities that they have previously designed, and they should analyze which are the best instruments they need to connect or not. We usually say that at least we recommend to use 2 instruments in each learning activity, just in case that one of them will be wrong working. But what we don't recommend is to use all the instruments in all the learning activities. Sometimes teachers say, okay, I like this idea of facial recognition plus voice recognition and also the processing tool. And we say, really? Do you really... are you sure that do you need to connect all the instruments just to be sure that about this kind of things of your student? Maybe you can use one of the instruments related with authorship, another one related with authorship and authentication in the first activity, and later just one of them in the third activity. But you don't need to use all of them in all of activities. It has no sense at the educational level. So you need to balance which is fine or proper to use or not. Okay, this is the first comment. The second one is that even the system, it's quite easy, and let's say that the students are not seeing nothing different that they are usually seeing in the screen when performing a learning activity. We need to explain very well to our learners which are the instruments that are connected to our learning activities. And we should explain them that what can happen if the system finds something or if they feel that the system is crashing. So as I'm saying here in this slide, we should think about the plan A, which is use this kind of system, and plan B. In the case of the system will not be working, our system has to be able to perform the learning activities as it was expected. So we need also to have a contingency plan when using this system on many other systems quite similar from this. Said this, I would like to show you in brief how it works. You can see in the top of the screen that there is the link to our website of our project. You can see there a video how it works. It's a video, I think that it's around 3-4 minutes. You will see it better rather than to show it here through the webinar, because sometimes it's not working properly. And in fact, this video is summarizing how it works. So in short, you can see here in this kind of circle, we will start for the setup the activity. So it means that the instructor should have previously designed the learning activity. Later, the instructor should decide which are the instruments he or she wants to connect to these learning activities. And when the learning activity is ready and all the instruments are connected, first of all, we need to have accept the agreement, the consent form of the learners, that they allow us to gather their personal data. So in fact, this agreement, it's like a legal document that we are explaining them how it works, which is the kind of data that we are collecting, and how this data will be stored in our servers. Mainly, the data is stored in the same servers of the university. They are not stored in Amazon or in other places. Tesla allows the institutions to store and to work with the information of their learners in the same, let's say, I don't know right now. Well, in the same servers, sorry, of the university. After that, you can see here that we mentioned enrollment. What does it mean? It means that we are asking to the learners to capture some data about them to build a biometric profile. So it means that we need a sample of their face, of their voice, sample when they are writing. We need also a document with writing with some information in order to see which is the pattern for later use the forensic analysis tool. And of course, for a plagiarism tool, we don't need a pattern, a previous pattern. Okay, so when the enrollment has been done, it can be done at the beginning of the course, or it can be done at the beginning of the first learning activity. Later, it cannot be, it's not needed to repeat this biometric profile. We have the first, let's say, pattern of this learner, and later the student perform the learning activity as he is usually doing. So something will appear on the screen, say, hey, we are going to start your capture your face or your voice or things like that. So the student just should need to say, okay, and then she will perform the learning activity as he or she is usually doing. After that, then the learners submit the activities, and they just need to see the final results. Let me say that the final results should be interpreted by the teachers. And first of all, what we need to do is just to, let's say, evaluate the learning activities. And after that, as a teachers, we can see the information coming from this kind of systems. So there are two separate things. It's really important not to mix them. Okay, so I'm going to finish. Here there are some considerations that you will see in deep later if you want to see. Some consideration addresses to the higher education institutions that above all, it's really important to think about the educational and the quality aspects before adopting a system like this. Other recommendations for learners, so they should be really informed about GDPR and how this data will be used. Later, we are recommending to train really well about how to use this kind of system to teachers and instructors. And just to take into account that Tesla at technology level was taught by continuous assessment, and that Tesla is really easy to connect to the existing learning environment, mainly Blackboard, because it's connected through LTI, so it's really something easy to connect. But of course, the technicians of the higher education institutions needs to know about this kind of technology. So as I previously said, we will have a new version. It says here at the beginning of 2020. It means at the end of 2020. And here I just left some figures about the numbers of the students, teachers, and learners that were taking part in Tesla project. And some of them were also with special educational needs, that they were performing also the activities from home. And here there are some perceptions about the students and the teachers when using a system like Tesla. These perceptions were, of course, before COVID, before the virus, but right now they are really useful, and you can see how the teachers and the students react. And finally, here there are some recommendations when assessing. First of all, think about if you really need a final examination when performing your courses. Really do you think a final examination to evaluate and to assess your learners? Think about the Bologna approaches, which is it's more based on achieving some competences, and then what do you need? What you need to think it's about these competences and what is really needed to assess. How we should assess, when and why, because sometimes we are in a circle, the usual circle to assess in a final examination. So you need to think about it. Select the best assessment model. Why not continuous assessment? It's one of them. I don't know why, but maybe you should think about this. Look at the different types of learning activities. There are an amount of learning activities that can be really, really useful for evaluate the engagement and the achievement of your learners. So maybe a final examination is not the only solution. And later, you should, of course, think about technology. But for us, technology is not the main aspect. And for sure, just for finishing, I always recommend to do a good learning activity design. And don't forget that our learners are behind the screen. And what we need to do is to teach in the best way we know, because then it means that they are going to learn also in the best way. So I think that this is all from my side. Anais, sorry for being 5 minutes late. And well.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. I know it's very difficult to sum up everything in 15, 20 minutes. It was a very, very big project. So, but you can still find some information on the Tesla website. We will put on the page of the webinar, we will put some links so you can find more information. And I guess you can always contact Anna if you need anything. But also we saw your questions here, so we will discuss them at the end after Esther's presentation. So now just a few words about Esther. So she holds a PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Barcelona, where she also served as a research and assistant professor. Then she began to collaborate with the Catalan University Quality Assurance Agency, ACU Catalunya, first as a student expert, and now she is the head of the Quality Assurance Area Department. And her work at ACU Catalunya is focused on the design of methodologies for different programs, and she's actively involved in program and institutional evaluation. And in the Tesla project, Esther was the leader of the work package on quality assurance. So Esther, please.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind introduction. And well, hello to everybody. I see that there are some colleagues we have been working for last year. So hello to everybody. And well, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the final results of Tesla project from quality assurance point of view. Okay, so well, you know that nowadays we are living in a digital age, and this can be explained through two main reasons: the globalization and the easy access to internet. And this fact has also impacted into higher education, causing some changes in teaching and learning process and universities themselves. It is worth mentioning that e-learning can play an important role in the achievement of Sustainable Development Goal, specifically in the SDG 4, which is to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. And also that Paris Communiqué, published in 2018, introduces the concept of digital and blended learning and the quality assurance of this type of provision. But before moving forward, I would like to introduce a new concept, the emergency remote teaching, And it is important to differentiate the situation of higher education system before and after the health crisis caused by COVID-19. Nowadays, as all of you know, higher education institutions needed to adapt the teaching and learning process very quickly. And for this reason, well, some authors have introduced this concept, which should be understood as a temporary shift on instructional delivery, and also that higher education institutions will return to the previous format once the crisis has already finished. So this presentation is going to focus on those scenarios where the EASE assessment is designed without an emergency remote teaching. So, well, the first question that raises when people think about e-learning is linked to the equivalence between online education and traditional education. And I have this slide that was prepared by Maria Kelo, and because I like it very, very much, it summarizes a lot the idea of this question that some people have. And when we are talking about equivalent, we are not saying that they are the same, but the program should guarantee that the learning outcomes are the same independently on the mode of provision. But also when we are talking about equivalent, we are saying that they have the same quality. So they should have an equal value and they should be equally recognized. And finally, it's important to say that when we are talking about the quality of, in general, any type of provision, it should be not so different when we are talking about online education or face-to-face education. But we should think about if it is necessary to adapt some criteria in order to measure the quality. And obviously, you can imagine that we need to adapt some elements, of course. But before going on, I would also like to share with you, some of you already know, but just in case, that in 2018, ENQA published a paper on the analysis of the European standards and guidelines from the perspective of e-learning. So, well, there was a working group that analyzes the European standards and guidelines, and from this analysis, we saw if those standards were applicable or not applicable to e-learning. And the main conclusion of this work was that obviously all those standards were applicable to online education. And I recommend you also to have this paper as a reference document if you are interested in checking the quality of online education. And now I would like to move to Tesla project, and Anna has explained a lot of details, and obviously, well, I will insist on the idea that Tesla was focused on e-assessment. Well, e-assessment is extremely linked to the academic integrity due to these copy and paste issues and trust, as Anna has already said. And well, and in this context, Tesla tries to fill this gap in the online evaluation system. The first thing, because of the lack of technologies to support authorship and authentication, and Anna explained different technologies that were tested in the project. But also there was a lack of a European quality assurance framework on e-assessment, which was our main work in the project. Okay, so the quality assurance bodies involved in the project have developed a set of standards presented in, well, they are presented in this slide. You can see that they are extremely, well, they are aligned with the European standards and guidelines. And the research methodology of Tesla was based on pilot execution to test, evaluate, and assure the reliability of the system, as Anna has already explained, but also to validate the definition of the framework. For me, there's an important detail here, that it's that we were working with pilot universities, and those universities have different profiles. We work with fully online universities, distance universities, and traditional universities that were moving to online or blended education. So that was really nice to check if the framework was applicable to everyone. Okay, so now I'm going to present the standards, the main ideas of them, and I would like to also to share some ideas and some conclusions we obtained when we were checking the when we were validating those standards. Okay, so the first one was related to policies, structures, processes, and resources for quality assurance of e-assessment. So in this way, institutions should have an e-assessment that match the ethical and legal standards. This is really important because of the reasons Anna has already explained. And it is also important that it's embedded in the organizational culture and values, because otherwise, if it's not aligned, then the institution can have a problem. It is also important that the assessment proposal is aligned with the pedagogical model and the academic and legal regulations. So when we were working in Tesla, we observed that different scenarios, because there are some countries where e-assessment is not permitted. So this is something that could avoid the implementation of a system of Tesla. Okay. In general, while all higher education institutions have well-defined policies and quality assurance procedures, and it is important to say that traditional universities have to develop specific elements related to quality assurance for e-learning and e-assessment. Besides, I would like to insist on this because it was really hard in the project, was the ethical and legal issues. This field is updated constantly, though we've got a big change with the GDPR publication, but it's updated constantly, so institutions should be aware of those changes and they should implement and review those policies inside their institution. While the second standard is related to learning assessment, and higher education institutions should have e-assessment methods which are varied. They should facilitate the pedagogical innovation, and they rigorously determine the level of achievement of learning outcomes. When we were working with pilots, we observed a diversity of assessment methods, and this means that all higher education institutions were really aware of the student-centered learning. They also offer specifically other methodologies for assessing learners with special educational needs, and all the chosen assessment methods were aligned with the learning outcomes. The third standard is related to authenticity, transparency, and authorship. This means that institutions should have protective measures to guarantee that warranty learning authentication and work authorship. So in general, we learned that institutions were aware of academic integrity, and they were mainly using plagiarism tools. So they need to define the threshold level between normal behavior and suspicious behaviors. So it was also a challenge to include new tools. It is also really important that learners have all the information in order to guarantee the confidence in order to share the personal data. And that's something really important, because this trust, it's not only for guaranteeing the authorship and authenticity of the assessment, but also this trust comes from the student point of view, because they are going to share their personal data, their biometric data, which is something very critical if we are thinking of from the ethical and legal point of view. It was from the project that we also observed, and it was a general recommendation that it was useful to have a full register of external attacks and technological problems, as this will help to improve the system. Well, then we've got infrastructure and resources. This means that institutions should have appropriate technologies. We were testing Tesla with different virtual and learning environments. Mainly they were linked to Moodle and Blackboard, but we take other ones. In this point, it was suggested to have a centralized technological support service in order to help all the stakeholders. So it was suggested to have a ticketing system and guidance and to provide guidance and procedures for technical staff, but also for teachers, etc. And well, it is also recommended to have to collect the feedback from all stakeholders on the use of the BLE, because sometimes this information, it was only collected partially from the students, and it is important to have the whole picture of information. Well, this standard, learner support, is one of the most important ones. So because the standard should be aware of where they should be aware of, have access to, and use effective and well-resourced support services. And when we are talking about resource services, we are referring to pedagogical, technological, and administrative related needs. It is important to have all and provide all this information to the learners. So in general, institutions have a well-established support mechanism, and students with special educational needs, they have a wider range of support. But it's important, as we are talking about a technological issues, a technological project, it was really important to provide guidance on technical things. Though it was very easy, and Tesla, we can say that it was something blind, so people and students didn't realize of the use of them, but they should have information also on other technical issues. Well, teaching staff, they should be skilled and well supported, and in relation with the technological and pedagogical requirements. And when we talk about pedagogical requirements, we also include the e-assessment methods. They should know which are the new trends, how they could include the assessment in their classes, etc. So they need to be trained on this innovation, and also to receive technical training, because of if they want to use Tesla, there are some elements that, well, Anna hasn't shown you, but there's some screens where they can show the results after applying Tesla, etc., etc. They also, teaching staff should be provided with updated information and guidelines in relation with academic integrity. This because of this regular updated of these ethical and legal issues. When we talk about learning analytics, we are referring to those information management system. All higher education institutions agree on the potentiality and value of this information management system, but this was a weakness we observed during the project, because it was needed to improve it, include some information coming from the quality assurance of the assessment. It also was suggested to define clear procedures in order to use the analysis of the procedures to use in order to use and analyze the personal data. And finally, we've got the standard related to public information. So institutions should inform appropriately on e-assessment methods and resources requirements. We observe that institutions provide really clear information. The websites were really student-oriented, easy to navigate, and they provide all the requirements in relation with software and hardware. So in general, well, which were the main conclusions we obtained is that, we proved that the framework was very useful to enhance the quality assurance for higher education institutions that implement e-assessment, that it's important to analyze the assessment from a holistic perspective. So we need to take into account different elements, the strategy, the digital strategy of the institution, the pedagogical model, a lot of elements. So it is really important to have this holistic approach. And of course, the profile of universities, of institutions, it's something important. And we learned that institutions fully online universities comply with most of the elements included in the framework, while traditional universities that were moving to blended or online education should analyze different elements, should update different procedures, etc. So that's all from my side. I think that I have forgotten to say something, that the framework is already published, also is public. You can find in ENQA website and also in ACU Catalunya website. And well, you've got all the information also on the slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Esther. We will now go quickly to the questions because we don't have a lot of time remaining. So I'm going to go in order. So I'm sorry, Esther and Anna, the questions won't come up to the screen because we have a small issue with the Q&A system, but I will read them out and then you can ask me and I'll repeat. So there are first questions about Anna's presentation. So very quick question. There was a question about the which tool we use for the forensic analysis. So maybe yeah you can go on.
Okay. For forensic analysis, we were using a tool developed for Tesla project. It was developed from our colleagues from ENQA, which is a Mexican research center. So it's not a commercial or it's not a commercial product. It was developed in the framework of Tesla, and the algorithm running behind was from Mexico. So if you want more information, you can write me and I can send you the name of the partner and you can contact them if you want to be in contact.
Okay, thank you. Then another question about the agreement that the learner has to sign. What happens if the learner does not want to sign the agreement due to data privacy concerns?
This is a lot. Yeah, we discuss it a lot. So here there are, let's say, two positions. First of all, if your institution wants to use this kind of system, previously she had to take a decision on that. So it means that when the student will enroll in your university, needs to know if the university is going to ask him to do this kind of things or not. So first of all, if an institution, let's say like the UC or any other distant university, decide to adopt this kind of system, the learners need to know previously to be enrolled that they are going to take part of this kind of procedures. In the second case, like right now, which is that virus came, and then right now during the course, the institutions need to move to this kind of systems. Of course, we say you cannot force your learners to do this. So then what you should have is to have a plan B. Say I'm not going to use a facial recognition or this kind of things. But anyway, they have the right to be assessed. Of course, they don't. They don't. In any case, they don't should. Let's say lost the course. So you need to think a plan B, which is the most suitable according to your university and according to your educational model. Okay. In our case, for example, in the EOC, what we do was to separate these learners in another virtual classroom. In this way, we can they were able to follow the regular course and without using this kind of mechanisms. Of course, it was during the pilot because the university didn't take the final decision of using or not the system. If it's the case that we are going to use the system, then they should do. If not, they should remove to be enrolled in the university.
Thank you, Anna. I will take two questions together. So is Tesla available as commercial product for use in teaching process for other universities? And is it available to universities outside Europe?
Okay, Tesla, it's not a commercial version. Tesla is an open source system. So it means that any institution that want to use Tesla can download and use Tesla. It's open source. But what we are offering, and we will do for at the end of this year, beginning of the next one, because we are enhancing some pieces of the systems. What we are offering, it's like, let's say, a consulting service or advice service in order to know how to install Tesla at technical level in your university, how to deploy the system in your servers. And on the other side, some educational recommendations about how to use Tesla. As I previously said in my presentation, Tesla is not just technology. I mean, you need to think about the pedagogical aspects and the quality aspects behind the system. So it's not a commercial product, it's open source, and we are offering this kind of service, and this service, it will have cost. Of course, we need to pay for hours devoted to this kind of advice or consulting service about the technical and educational one. And the second one related, if it's available outside of Europe, of course, it's open source, you can use it. But you just need to take into account that we are under the GDPR, which is an European regulation. And maybe in, let's say, in USA or other countries, you need to check which is your legal regulation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, about the technology, has testing shown any false warnings?
Yeah, we tested Tesla across 4 pilots. Of course, Anais and Esther knows it. And the first pilot, we were having false positives, so we were working on. And at the end, of course, in the last pilot, we didn't have false positive. But the key point is to combine several instruments, not just using one, because sometimes one of them, let's say, it's not working properly, do internet connection or do your own servers or things like that. So this is why I was saying during my presentation, please be aware that Tesla is something running, is an algorithm running, and the best let's say, thing that you should do is to focus on educational aspects and the content of the learning activities that you are assessing and the criteria you are applying when assessing. Tesla is just providing additional information. So you need to, let's say, evaluate the learning activities as instructors, as you are usually doing, and later to check this other information. So don't base all your decision to pass or not the course just in technology, because it's not the proper way to act.
Can you give some examples of learning activities?
Wow, there are a lot of types of learning activities, but I'm going to explain a couple of them in short for not spending too much time. For example, one case that we were using Tesla system was in computer science department, that our students were asked to make a conceptual map about the main concept of programming. So usually when we were asking for the learners to create this conceptual map, it was in a digital Word file. And when using Tesla, we requested them, hey, why do you explain to us how are you creating this conceptual map? Why are you relating this concept with another one, and why this arrow is going down and going up. And then it was a way that the students were explaining us how they were building this kind of conceptual map. And at the same time, we were collecting the voice of the learner. So it was a simple way to use this kind of instrument. Another was, for example, when the students are writing an essay. This is quite easy because you can use a plagiarism tool, and at the same time later you can use forensic analysis tool. Of course, in addition, you can add facial recognition to see how he is working or she is working with a laptop, but it has no sense. So you can use in an essay, for example, this kind of things. Another last case is in a test. In a test activity that this also, I saw this kind of questions in the chat. You can also ask to the learners to explain why are they answering option A, B, or C in the test, in order to understand the rationale behind the learner when answering this question. And at the same time, we are capturing data, facial and voice recognition. So then later we can analyze also the information. So there are a lot of type of learning activities, of course. We have, I think that in the project we collected some best practices of using Tesla. And I'm not sure if this is in the website or not, but of course you can write me, and also we can share. I think that from the EOC we left some webinars related to this, and they are in our website, and there are also some open guidelines for others to use it. I'm not sure if they are in English or not, but of course if you need it, we can check it.
Okay, I think we'll take one last question because we are running out of time. I don't see questions for the framework of e-assessment, so it's still about technology. It's always like there are always a lot of questions about technology because it's very difficult to explain everything in 15 minutes. But how can you assure that all tests are adapted to all learners, also for those with different forms of disability? And if yes, according to what standards? And it's not only about disabilities. There is another question which is about cultural differences.
Wow, it's a really long question. So
we have 1 minute left, so
yeah. So okay, I will try to do my best. Okay, when during the Tesla pilots, we were analyzing the most common disabilities that we have in our universities. So we were trying to adapt the system in order to overcome this kind of let's say barriers that the learners can have performing the learning activities. So the Tesla was adapted to be used for different kind of disabilities. It means that people with chronic, let's say, illness, and also for temporary illness, for blind people, for people with deaf loss and things like that. So some functionalities of the system can be adapted, removed, or added according the different types of disabilities. Regarding the cultural differences, that it was also another question. We were working in the ethical part of the project. There is a roadmap about this, about how to ensure this. Even that. The system and the algorithm running behind the system were taking into account this kind of perceptions. Is well known, or worst known, that sometimes they have some bias. So it was also taken into account, but of course we cannot do everything, and we are not the best in the world. I mean, if some problem is still not solved, we have not solved this problem with the bias of the cultural differences. So we left in the hands of the educational institutions to take care that they are following an ethical approach of the educational process using this kind of tools. Also, they are taking care of the cultural differences as they are right now taking care. I mean, it's not something just depending on technology. It's something that it's right now in our institution. So technology is not quite different. And the last thing about how can the activities can be adapted. In fact, the activities are adapted as you are doing right now. I mean, this is why I'm trying to explain during my presentation. Don't think only about technology. Think about how are you acting right now? How are you taking care of your cultural differences in your courses? And later, you should take a look about how technology can help you or not. Sometimes technology cannot help you because you have the same problem in a digital way. So, of course, the system is not solving everything, but at least if you are applying pedagogical approaches and educational purposes to teach better and trying to your learners learn, and also your institution is following this framework related with quality assurance, I think that at least you have the 90% of the work done, of course, but we don't have the real solution for everything. I mean, I would like to, but...
Yes, Esther?
May I add some a last comment is that the framework and Tesla, from my point of view, it helps to redesign some elements at the institutional level. Yeah. So it helps to reflect and think and stop sometimes. Institutions are very quickly, so with that excuse, they could stop and redesign some elements. And I think that Tesla helps not only from the technological point of view, but from the ethical, legal point of view, but also from the design of the learning activities. There was a really big debate that helped institutions to redesign in another way, in a better way, taking into considerations the needs of the learners. And also the framework was very helpful for doing this analysis. That's it. That was the thing I want to add it.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you very much. We will have to close now because it's time. We even went a bit over. Anna, the system should be available from next year, right?
Yeah, at the end of this year will be available for
at the end of this year. Okay.
Yeah.
And we will post the video on ENQA webpage. We will send the information to the participants. There you will have the webinar, the presentation, and also links so that you can get more information about Tesla, and also the link to the framework, which is already published on ENQA website, ACU Catalonia website. So we will post all of this. Thank you very much to our speakers, Anna and Esther. And thank you very much to the participants, and also to my colleague Jasper, who is behind helping with the technology. Yeah. And I wish you all the best for these difficult times. And we'll see you soon for another ENQA webinar. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.